Good to see you, and welcome back to the Shaun Starr Show on a game day. Yes, the Montreal Canadiens back in action at home against the visiting San Jose Sharks. The worst that the NHL has to offer up this season will be live in front of your face, whether you're there or watching from the comforts of home, as you get ready for the Montreal Canadiens, who, no doubt, as we know and we have talked about countless times, the Montreal Canadiens do have one of the easier schedules. We know for a fact Montreal went through the gauntlet and have come out on the other side and are now ready to hopefully take advantage of some softer opposition. Got off to a great start, right? Going to Ottawa, dropping a 5 spot on the Ottawa Senators, 5-2 on a Saturday night. The beginning of Juraj Slafkovsky's resurgence in the second half. Followed it up with one of the more anticipated games in a regular season. I don't know how you felt, but I couldn't wait. Couldn't wait to see how 20 was going to react against Carolina, knowing that the Carolina Hurricanes had been here since late Saturday night. So they spent all day Sunday, all day Monday, and prepared for game day on Tuesday. Interesting. Wonder if they had their rookie dinner here, but no doubt, Juraj Slafkovsky showing good hockey IQ. I think if you're a loyal viewer of the Shaun Starr Show on YouTube.com, you know I've been talking about how much I appreciate Juraj Slafkovsky's hockey IQ. He was all over the ice again, not as nasty as he was against Ottawa, but very smart on the ice, was very instrumental, obviously, in getting the first goal of the night started for Montreal against Carolina on Tuesday and making sure he was in the right spot. Again, a disturber on Lane Hutson's power play goal. And speaking of 48, speaking of Hutson, okay, the kid is back. Nice 3-point performance on Tuesday. Can't wait for the showdown tonight in the two of the three guys that are going to be right there amongst finalists for the Calder for Rookie of the Year. But right now, as much as I thought a month ago that Lane Hutson was going to lock it down, win it, Dustin Wolf of the Calgary Flames, right now, I think it's his trophy to lose with what he's been able to do with the Calgary Flames in this competitive window in the Western Conference. The other thing we saw about, and before I get into why we're here today, is we're that much closer to March 7th, I want to talk about what TSN Hockey insider Darren Dreger told yours truly and Connor McKenna on the Tuesday version of the TSN 690 morning show. We'll get into the group in Montreal, how good it is, the core, locking it in. How about this package for Jake Evans and Yoel Armia? Is that something that is on the table? Is it realistic? Can the Canadiens find a team that is willing to take on both Armia and Evans? We'll hear from Darren Dreger about that and more, and an update on the Jake Evans negotiations between his camp and the Montreal Canadiens. The other highlight, before we get into all of that trade stuff, was Owen Beck on Tuesday night at the Bell Center. You know, everybody's got an ego. I'm no different. When we spoke to Mark Denis on the TSN 690 morning show on Tuesday, and before we got to him, we were talking about where Owen Beck should slot in. And Connor had asked me the question, where should he go? And in my opinion, and I said it on the radio on Monday, that what are we doing here? We're talking about a Montreal Canadiens team that is closer to a top 5 pick than they are to a playoff spot. And we'll get into the playoff percentages in a few minutes. But I said, and my logic was, if the Canadiens are closer to a top 5 pick, what are we doing? You know, you went through the highs and lows of a season. It's time to see what you have. It's time to start seeing if these players are good, if you are comfortable moving forward with them. So I was of the opinion on Monday that Owen Beck between Patrick Laine and Alex Newhook made sense to me. And so it's always good when you have an idea and an opinion, and that opinion turns into reality. And we saw Owen Beck skating on a second line with Patrick Laine and Alex Newhook and did not look out of place. And I think Patrick Laine appreciated the vision. I think he appreciates the playmaking ability Owen Beck brings, and he does create offense, according to Patrick Laine. So what does that mean for Kirby Dach's future? Dun, dun, dun. To be determined. Dach didn't play against Carolina. He's out with a lower body injury. So coming up for the Montreal Canadiens, before we get into trade talk here, they've got the San Jose Sharks tonight at the Bell Center, and then it's a home and home with the Buffalo Sabres. Habs are at Buffalo on Saturday night. So in the next 3 games, San Jose, Buffalo, Buffalo, 2 + 2 + 2 = 6. 6 is the magic number because as we speak today, that's where the Montreal Canadiens are percentage-wise to make the playoffs this year. 6% shot at making the playoffs. So San Jose, Buffalo, obviously 6 points on the table if you are really dead set, and Nick Suzuki said this after Tuesday's win, that his team is trying, they're trying to grab a final playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. If they are really destined to fulfill what Nick Suzuki wants them to do and make the playoffs, then 6 points out of 6 points, 5 out of 6 is not going to be good enough. And obviously, a 6% chance tells you exactly how long of a shot it is for Montreal to make the playoffs. But the other thing I'm proud of here on this channel, as consistent as we always are together here, whether you guys are engaging with your opinions and your points of view, the highs and lows as you see them during this Canadian season. What I do really like is what I think is happening and what I've wanted to see happen since we started talking together on the regular on this channel since November. I want this team to play meaningful games in March. I've been saying it since November. I'm saying it again today. Playoffs be damned. If you get in, unbelievable. If you don't, it's okay. As long as we're talking about some pressure games in March, trying to make things happen. And again, identifying the players at hand. So it's going to be a fascinating ride, and it's extra fascinating knowing that here we are today talking on February 27th about the Montreal Canadiens on their first 2-game winning streak in a month, taking on the league worst San Jose Sharks tonight live on TSN 690. So let's talk about trade rumors. Let's talk about what our friends at RG Media have been writing about this week as it relates to, yes, here's the headline. Let me scroll up. Most important in the Canadiens rebuild. Scouts break down the importance of the upcoming draft with the Montreal Canadiens. Now, as we know, as you pay attention to this channel, the Montreal Canadiens have their first round pick and they also have Calgary's. But what I find interesting and what I want to share with you today is according to rg.org and one of the excerpts from Nate Dufford's piece at rg.org around the Canadiens and the importance of the 2025 draft in June is this excerpt here. Another scout shared a similar sentiment. They are more on the side that the Canadiens could earn a top 5 pick without having to trade. Now, I'm not sure when this piece was really put together or when the sources were spoken to, but I like this paragraph. I'll highlight it here so we're very specific. The Canadiens could still get a top 5 pick with their selection if they keep losing. Well, they've won 2 in a row. We'll see what happens against San Jose tonight. If not, though, I'd target a team who could use 2 top 15 prospects with a depleted pipeline and trade up to get one of those top 5 picks, according to a scout. And that scout was a little bit more specific. I'd take a look at a team like Seattle or Nashville. Would they give the Canadiens a top 5 pick if they could get picks 7 and 12 or something within that range? And so that's what's interesting as it relates to what are the Canadiens going to do with Jake Evans and Yoel Armia if they are destined to really get into that top 5? And in my opinion, I do not believe the Montreal Canadiens should be making earth-shattering moves to get into the top 5. As a matter of fact, it was Pierre Lebrun on Insider Trading on TSN that was talking about the potential return, right, for a Jake Evans. Apparently, the ask is a second-round pick for Jake Evans. What does Darren Dreger think about the value of a Jake Evans? Could Ken Hughes bring in a second-round pick for Jake Evans? Because if it's worse than a second-round pick, maybe it's better to hold on to Evans. Here's Darren Dreger and what he said to Connor McKenna and yours truly on Tuesday's version of the TSN 690 morning show.
I could see a second round pick. I absolutely could. But Ken Hughes may have to wait until you get closer to the trade deadline or maybe even closer to 3 o'clock Eastern on March 7th, unless he's got one parked in a drawer already and he's waiting to see if something better emerges. I don't know. But that would be the scenario where, the managers that are calling have done all their shopping and now they're ready to pull the trigger. And sometimes that could be real close to the deadline.
So interesting stuff, right? Interesting stuff there from Darren Dreger. As always, you can listen to Darren Dreger on the TSN 690 morning show as he joins us every Wednesday and every Friday at 8:35. TSN690.ca if you want to listen online. So interesting to note that when we talk about Darren Dreger and Jake Evans, here's the point of view that I would share with you today. And you tell me in the comments how you feel about this. If Ken Hughes cannot get a better than a second round pick being the bare minimum in exchange for Jake Evans, and that the best they could do after repeated attempts is to land a third or worse pick, I love this opinion. I think it's more valuable to keep Jake Evans on the Montreal Canadiens than it would be to get a third or a worse draft pick in exchange, because Nick Suzuki, the captain of this team, his line is going again. And this team is feeling and vibing and feeling strong and confident again. They start, to me, to look more and more like that team we watched in late December. Shut down Florida, beat Tampa, beat Dallas, beat Washington and Colorado and Vegas and all those teams, right? And I think it's important to weigh risk reward. And I personally think keeping Jake Evans in this hypothetical that the Canadiens cannot get better than a third round pick in a hypothetical trade for Jake Evans, that keeping Evans, keeping the security of Evans on this team, keeping the vibes going with Evans on this team is more valuable than a third or an even worse fourth, fifth, etc. type draft pick in exchange. So very interesting stuff here as we get closer to the March 7th trade deadline. And here's another thing Darren Dreger alluded to again on Wednesday's version of the morning show with Connor McKenna and yours truly, where he talked about maybe things are stalling out between Jake Evans and the Montreal Canadiens here.
Unless somebody jumps early, and that's plausible. That happens every single year. I mean, Jake Evans is interesting, but there is some risk that comes along with him as well. He's had a real good run with the Montreal Canadiens. He wants to extend that, but there's a business attachment to this that is being recognized, obviously, in not only this conversation, but the speculation of where they're at in this negotiation, which is really on pause, or so it sounds like anyway.
And I could see it. I could totally see it. If the reporting seems to be very consistent that the two sides are very far apart. And I think watching Owen Beck play, knowing that Oliver Kapanen made the Canadiens out of camp this fall, and that the chances are quite high he could make the camp and stay with the Montreal Canadiens in the fall of 2025, that it when you add those pieces up, it makes a little sense that you're not willing to really break the bank to keep Jake Evans. So interesting stuff as Darren Dreger tells us on TSN 690 that maybe things are on pause right now between the two sides because they are very far apart. So let's talk then about the possibility. Is there a team? Can it happen? Can you look at, through a realistic lens, the Montreal Canadiens are shopping Yoel Armia and Jake Evans together as a package to a possible team? TSN Hockey insider Darren Dreger breaks it down for us.
Two for the price of one seems like a good idea in theory, until you're one of those contending teams that wrestles with the cap on a day-by-day basis, and you don't have the roster space, and then it gets more complicated. Now, you could alleviate that too, and maybe part of the deal is a first-round pick, but you also have to take a contract back, something along those lines. So I think Hughes is open to anything, but that also includes the idea of having further negotiations, even though it sounds like it's slow with the Jake Evans camp especially, but I don't think they've quite or finally closed the door on that opportunity.
So doesn't that make sense to you when you hear that? Obviously, Ken Hughes, right, is doing what I think a good businessman, manager of a pro sports team should do. Everything is on the table. Everything is open for discussion. There is no such thing as a stupid idea in this brainstorming session. If you have a creative idea in which you think you can take Yoel Armia or Jake Evans in a package and we can get a first-round pick in exchange, Ken Hughes is obviously very, very comfortable listening to that. But listening to Darren Dreger, I'm not so sure we should be setting ourselves up for this package type of deal, a plug-and-play type of deal to get a first round pick, whether it's this year in 2025 or next year, where the draft seems to be a little bit deeper, a little bit more lucrative when it comes to talking about these high-end players, that the 2026 draft seems to be a lot more attractive than what we're setting ourselves up for in 2025. So interesting as we get closer. I think I'm more inclined to believe that a package deal between these two, Evans, Armia, to some other city, is unlikely to happen. And I still do believe, I really do think that if we're talking about Jake Evans on the market, call me naive, call me a fanboy, I think a first round pick is on the table. You're telling me teams that are in the top 4, top 5 of the overall standings don't want more security, don't want more trustworthiness, and they're willing to give up the 28th, 29th, 30th pick in the first round. I can totally see it. And in my opinion, I'd love to see Ken Hughes wait. Let's wait, man. Let's wait for a second. And who the hell am I to tell Ken Hughes? This guy's a power agent in the National Hockey League and now running the Montreal Canadiens with Jeff Gorton. But, that's kind of how I see this thing happening. And I do think the Montreal Canadiens are going to be busy. I really, really do. And on the other note about this, as I asked Darren Dreger about Kirby Dach and whether there's anything on the street about Kirby Dach and the Montreal Canadiens, and the answer was pretty much no, and that in Dreger's opinion anyway, Kirby Dach has shown enough in the small sample size that teams are still looking at him through a curious angle, so to speak. So if you have your hopes up that the Canadiens are going to move away from Kirby Dach, I don't think that's going to happen here. And one of the other things, and we'll end it on this, is one point I've been emphasizing for a while now, and I mentioned it off the top here, is games that matter later in the season, to see who you've got, who's buying in, who's not, who understands what we're trying to do here versus those that really, for whatever reason, aren't buying in. And Darren Dreger kind of sees it in a similar way. Here he is talking about the group that the Montreal Canadiens are building here.
The fans can see that the group assembled right now is a real competitive and a pretty good group. And so if the essence of this team develops into your core, and if that core is greater than 5-6 players, then you've got a real nice foundation to work with going into the off season. Then, of course, the goal has to be locking down a playoff spot next year, and then you contend after that. So if there's a script for teams that go through renovations or rebuilds, then this is on script, I think, for Montreal where they're at.
And so it makes sense to me when we talk about core players, guys that you look at and say, okay, understand that core and unmovable are different things. Everybody's tradable in the National Hockey League. But in the realistic world, yes, you have Cole Caulfield, you have Nick Suzuki, you have Lane Hudson, you have Caden Gooley, right? Uri Slafkovsky is that guy that needs to check those boxes, keep checking those boxes, and show on a more consistent basis that you can be this angry, possessed guy on the ice that wants to do anything within his power when he's out there to help his line, to help his team find a way to win and score and put his team in an advantageous position. These are the things I'm looking for. I think those are the things you're looking for. And it's no surprise to me that the Montreal Canadiens are doing the exact same thing and internalizing who they've got, who their core players are, and how they can better surround those players. And all that to say, I think Montreal is on track. I've been consistent. If the rebuild is the rebuild, we all got excited in December after the Christmas break, and they went on this 13-3-1 record. But then the Four Nations pause where they went 1-7-1 over their last 9 to take us to the break. And now we're starting to see a team with better habits, starting to see a team that's more organized. And the Montreal Canadiens have some soft teams coming up. San Jose, Buffalo, 6 points on the table. 5 is the bare minimum Montreal has to come back from. So let me know in the comments, please. Let me know what you think as it relates to what you think the value is for someone like Jake Evans. And are you still thinking package deal? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget, you can help support me by supporting this new challenge, this new endeavor we've undertaken here. Let me show you what I'm talking about if you're not familiar with what we're doing here. And I'll show you. Let me put this on myself here. Not bad, right? Not bad. Nice little slick Rick here for a second. See this? This is a high quality snapback hat, beautiful embroidery, one size fits all, and you can order yours right here at the ShaunStarShow.com. And guess what? Taxes and shipping are all included in the price. So it's a one price fits all for everybody. And we have 2 different styles, as you could see here. The embroidery is high level and a nice mesh backing, one size fits all. Support the Shaun Starr Show, and extra special for my local viewers on youtube.com. Shipping is free in this country. And if you're in the Montreal and surrounding area, Laval, South Shore, West Island, if you order before 2 p.m. during the week, you will get it the day you ordered it. And if you order after 2 p.m., all good. You will get hand-to-hand delivery the very next day. But I am offering up same-day delivery if you do find a way to get it in there before 2 p.m. If not, it'll be at your door tomorrow. And this is to your door, delivered by a human being. If you don't get it today, you'll get it tomorrow. So again, go check it out at the Shaun Starr Show, theshaunstarrshow.com. You have a beautiful 11-ounce ceramic microwavable dishwasher safe mug. You've got your Shaun Starr Show black and white snapback cap. And then if you want, you could go just the all black route, what I'm wearing here today. Beautiful. Again, the embroidery, the quality is of the highest tier, and the price point not at the highest tier. So yeah, you can support me by supporting all my projects. And again, as you notice here, this is a sponsor-free show. You watch other podcasts online, they're like, oh yeah, brought to you by this, brought to you by that. Go do this, go do that. We're straight up, right in your face, coming at you direct. Occasionally, yes, through the ShaunStarShow.com website, you can get your merch and support the show to keep us going. So let me weigh in the comments. Walk me through what you're thinking about as the Canadiens get closer to the NHL trade deadline.